It started right after this event that happened to me when I was 6 years old. I was out on my back porch for my birthplace, and it was just right after a storm. And the water was dripping down off the porch, and I was out there letting that water drip down in my hand. And all of a sudden, miniature lightning came down, it lit in my hand. And as a child, I didn't know how to take that. I thought about closing it up to try to catch it, you know, but for some reason, something wouldn't let me do it. And I've never seen nothing like that before, and I'll never forget it as long as I live. And right after that, I just started doing extraordinary things.
And now, decades later, the hands of Simon Jackson continue to do extraordinary things, creating three-dimensional works of art that uniquely echo the past. Amazingly detailed barns, houses, and homesteads that capture reality on a miniature scale.
Except, for instance, if I'm interested in doing a certain building, it has to be something that would really strike me as something dramatic and fantastic. And it has to be something that's, have a lot of history behind it.
Jackson's art is a history lesson meticulously sculpted from wood, metal, and other materials, often recalling the rural South in simpler times. Each work takes months to complete. It's a journey that begins with a memory, a photograph, sometimes a visit.
If the building is, like partially there, I'll look at it and I'll walk around it, and then I go and find someone that could tell me a little bit about the place and a little history and give me a little history about it. And I'll take all of that in, and then I'll go back and I'll do some sketches, and I'll take it from there.
Jackson's art in miniature also recalls personal history. It's a path he took years ago when creating a gift for someone special.
I said one day I wanted to try something different. I wanted to do something special for my mother. And so I had the idea of doing our birthplace. So I said I was going to give that a try, and all of a sudden, 2 or 3 months later, I had it. And I presented it to Mom, and she loved it.
Whether the miniature is a facade or an entire structure, Jackson's works have found a place in the hearts of people who want a tangible part of their old home to hold on to.
And I try to preserve history where peoples would be able to see and not forget. It's good to, remember where you come from, that you would not forget the appreciation of where you are now.
Thanks to the miniature art of Simon Jackson, collector and genealogist Ernest Edward Lacey has a daily reminder of where he has come from. One piece is an uncanny replica of a log cabin belonging to Lacey's ancestor, Frijo Harris, an emancipated slave who, among other things, ran a stagecoach business.
There's a relative that's a generation ahead of me, and he just sat down at the table and basically sketched this house out. And he said it was a log cabin. And I gave it to Simon Jackson, and he gave me another sketch. And I said, that's it. But there are things in there, beds are in there. He got his sister to make miniature quilts to go on the beds. It's almost like, if you were small enough, like you said, if you're small enough, you could basically go through the door. That's your home.
As Lacey points out, no detail is too small for Simon Jackson.
It's kind of difficult to see inside of the outhouse, but inside of the outhouse, there's a corn cob that is placed in there. Number one was one thing, but number two required a little more work.
From a handy corn cob to a stagecoach with baggage and a ram's horn used by the driver to signal his approach to the inn, and a historic home built by Free Joe Harris, Simon's art is in the smallest detail.
I think there are over 25,000 miniature bricks in this house. Each was laid by hand. The inside is completely furnished, including pictures on the wall. The pictures on the wall are about the size of your thumbnail.
Back at his home, Jackson is close to completing the details on another piece.
This little axe here, is the head of it is actually made from an old nail, and the little handle is a little piece of oak wood that was carved out. And the little shovels and carver blades is made out of copper. A little wooden handle. Tree branch on the top of the barn here is made out of an old extension cord.
But there is an emotional attachment to this work. It's the barn from the homestead of his sharecropping family.
On this side, remember this old barrel that Dad used to have, and we used to use them to haul water because at one point in time we didn't have running water. And I also remember this old churn. Mama used to make buttermilk and butter and all that stuff out of that. I never actually used it, but I would always like watching them do it.
As carefully sculpted figures hard at work, members of the artist's family make an appearance in this miniature masterpiece. But even on a deeply personal project, the artist's quest for perfection remains.
I worked on that tree for at least a couple of months. I would go out and look at a real tree that's been there for years and partially decayed, and you would notice all of the different colors. Most people don't pay much attention to that, but trees sometimes have as many as 6 or 7 different color variations, and I try to capture all of that.
Simon Jackson creates art that is close to the heart, his heart. The heart of a man in search of an ancestor, and the hearts of millions who visit Graceland Mansion in Memphis, where they view Jackson's replica of Elvis Presley's Mississippi birthplace. And it all began with a little boy who once caught lightning in his hands.